Hello, my quilting friends. This week I was sent a pack of Tonga treats from Timeless Treasures, 5-inch pre-cut squares that made a beautiful batik fabric quilt. So I can't wait to get this on my machine and start quilting it. Now, a couple things that stood out to me right at the beginning when I was looking at quilting this quilt. Number one, these are very patterned batiks, which means that they have a lot of different shapes and colors going on with them, and I didn't think my quilting design would show up very well. So to make it easier, to make this project go by faster, I've decided to quilt it with one design stitched in all over style. So let's get on our machine and I'll show you how it works. So let's get started quilting this quilt with sharp stippling. As you can see, we start in the center of the quilt and work our way outward. And I'm going to be quilting a row of the design from the center to the inside edge, the edge that's inside the arm of my machine. So I'm just going to start with a simple wiggly line, come to a sharp point, and then wiggle back up and around. You can see the fabric is quite busy, but working this design kind of in an all-over fashion and ignoring the piecing lines really does help. I can focus on what I'm quilting even though the fabric is rather busy and is probably going to hide a lot of the quilting design. So I'm going to come to that sharp point, wiggle off in another direction. Kind of like those long wiggly flame shapes. I am aiming to keep about 1/2 inch between my lines of quilting, so that way the quilt ends up finishing very nice and soft. You'll notice that as I'm quilting, I'm kind of aiming to go upwards, hit the top part of that block, and then I come back down, so that way I'm knocking out about a 4-inch row through the quilt. So right now I'm going to come down and swing around. One thing that's really nice to do is try and avoid spots like this where a lot of seam allowances come together in one place. Just stitch around it. Get close to it, but don't stitch right through it, which can just simply because it can sometimes hang up your needle. You hit the seam allowances just right. You might even break your needle. So the best thing to do is just avoid it. So I'm working my way up again, just stitching that wiggly line. And as for kind of memorizing and knowing what I'm stitching, that's just repetition. I've gotten to know this design really well, so I can stitch it very, very smoothly. And this just comes with practice. I kind of like to, my best analogy, I should say, for designs is kind of like having a relationship. The more you hang out together, the better you get to know one another, and the better you can put the design on the quilt. So I'm getting close to the edge here, and I want to be careful. Most of the time I like to even piece an extra border on the edge of my quilt, simply so I don't have to stitch right to the edge. In this case the quilt's pretty small, so I'm going to quilt right to the edge, and I'll give you some tips on how to keep this from lipping up on your foot right on the edge. I'm start by getting back to my design. Stitch a little bit of sharp stippling, and then right here I'm going to just kind of put a little extra tension on it with my hands. So I quilt over. Oops, see how my foot kind of caught up in the batting? That's okay. Just going to give it a tug and lift the presser foot and get it unhooked. So it's really easy to get your foot hung up like that. Just try and watch out for it. If it does get hung up in the batting, it's no big deal. Just stop and get it unhooked and get back started again quilting. So I'm wiggling down, and this might be a little tricky. You might not be able to see, so definitely feel free to rotate your quilt around, shift it into the arm of the machine just like this, kind of squish it and make sure it's nice and flat, and get back to quilting. No matter how big or how small the quilt is, it's always open to you to reposition it, get it into a position where it really feels easy to quilt. And so you can definitely see the design and see where you're filling. So that's it for this video. I really enjoyed quilting this project and it went so quickly. I knocked out the entire quilt in about 35 minutes and I only had to change the bobbin once. So it really was a very quick and easy project. I definitely think this is absolutely beginner level. So pick up a pack of Tonga Treats, the 5-inch squares, and look for the free pattern on the back so you can piece up this quilt and machine quilt it too. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to share it with your friends and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any more videos coming out soon. Until next time, let's go quilt.